Hello, Wes. Thank you for being on the show. It's a real pleasure.
It's great to
Have
be
a seat,
here.
make yourself comfortable. Today, when people actually see this, it'll be a Martin Luther King Day. So
Yes.
today's a day of service, and
Yes.
it just worked out coincidentally that way that I've asked you to come on the show
Appreciate
today.
that.
But I think it's very relevant also in regards to some of the topics that we're going to talk about today. Let's not tell anybody. Okay, let's not tell anybody. Right? Tell anybody. I hope a lot of people are watching, but let's not tell anybody that I'm expecting that this may be one of the more popular shows, guest-wise. And this is the third show. And statistically, I thank everybody watching the show because our statistics from a metric standpoint are doing really, really well. And I expect also that with Wes's help, if you know what I mean, those ratings will improve even more so. So, thanks in advance for your help with that.
Well, yeah, Fred.
The other thing I also want to mention is that Reverend Wes Smith, you and Joyce, I believe, were the first two people that I actually talked to when my wife and I moved here 6 years ago. We both have dogs, and I was out walking my dog, and you and Joyce were walking down the block here.
Yes.
And of course you reached out, said, hello, how are you? Are you the new people living in here? And I think I joked around with you and maybe said no, or I don't know exactly what I said at that point in time. But that's another interesting thing that I met you 6 years ago. And did you know that I had just moved in here, or were you just always that nice with everybody?
Well, I have to attribute a lot of what I know, Fred, Harvey Cedar's knowledge, to my wife, who started here in 1957 when her dad built the second house on our street. But she knows the pulse of the town somehow. I don't know if it's a sixth sense or what. And she said that must be the new family in that house. So it's interesting. You should speak about our walking our dogs, because quite honestly, during that time of the pandemic, if it weren't for Fred and Serge walking each day, and Joyce and myself and our dog Skimmer, and the dogs actually befriended each other, like each other to this day, and we often still walk a couple of blocks together. And during the pandemic, I have told many people this, that if it wasn't for Fred Bercari, I would have gone nuts, because Fred and I...
This is a first, another first.
Fred and I conversed, and you didn't get close to another person and converse during that pandemic. It was almost forbidden. There wasn't any worship. There wasn't, except virtual. Everything was virtual then. Meetings were virtual, and necessarily so. But Fred, outside, we could talk to one another. We could walk. We would tell funny stories. We would just encourage each other in the living of life. And couldn't wait to meet Joan, and that took a while because she was still working and still at their other home. So anyway, Fred has become a very good, dependable friend, and I count that great.
Well,
a great gift.
That's very nice. So this is another first, because on every show, every guest I've had so far on the show has said something that was a first. Mayor John Imperial mentioned he was running again. On the last show, Nick at Kubel's, indicated something that he doesn't go around telling everybody about his career pathing. So for those of you who haven't watched that, you need to go back and see that particular episode. And now Wes talking about his sanity, and somehow that I have something to do with that. So I appreciate that. That is, that's why I'm saying I think this is going to be one of those like really special shows, Wes. Okay. So 6 years is a long time, right? And most of the people that we know in this town and on this island, we don't get older, we just get better, But
We'd like to think that for sure, but
Well, this is a positive show. We want to
Yes.
stay positive here.
Yes.
As I mentioned to you prior to the show, because a lot of people prepare. Some people prepare before they come here, and I understand. It's not something they necessarily do. You preach up and down the island. That's how I presented you on the last show. So make sure you consistently agree with that. You preach, and so you're used to talking to people. That's
Yes.
that's fantastic, and they rely on what you say. It's just not like you're saying stuff. A lot of times people are in conversation and it's just chatter, but people come sometimes long distances to listen to you. So every word that you say has an impact.
yes.
Would you say that's?
Yeah, I think so. And when you're representing the lineage that goes back to creation, and then through the lineage of Christ and just the whole being called into ministry. And it's not ministry just to a local church. It's you're called to be a follower of Christ and his teachings, and I put a big caption on the top of that, love, and it's mostly about love, and it's we have a lot of interference today, a lot of uphill struggles people are having, and so 8 years ago, almost 9 now years ago, when we retired after 41 years of ministry, active ministry, we retired down here. I said to Joyce, I'm going to go nuts down here. There are no people, we have no church, etc. And she said, I wouldn't worry about it, honey. I think you're going to be fine down here. Give yourself time and a chance. Shortly after that, Chief Burniford and I had a meeting in his office, and he extended the volunteer position of chaplain of Harvey Cedars Police Department. Mm-hmm. And, so it's great because in seminary, I took all the training, all the counseling courses, etc., to be a military chaplain because I was single in seminary. And my father said, it's an opportunity, Wes, for you to see the world and to serve your country, because my father had been in the Second World War. And so, I did seriously look into that. And but God had other ideas, and I was called to my first church in New York State at that time. But so when Chief asked me if I would be the chaplain, I thought, well, I certainly have had enough experience with people, and also I've had experience with crises, terrible crises, and not only deaths, sudden tragic deaths of children and automobile accidents, etc., in our churches that I served, but I was a first responder at the station nightclub fire, and that really was a teaching experience that continued to carve me into the person I believe I am today, and equipped me to be present in critical situations to bring calm and encouragement. So when I first spoke to the other police officers of the Harvey Cedars Police Department, my first year as chaplain, I said, think of something we all love, and that's ale, A-L-E. And that is, I'm available, that's the A.
Okay.
I will listen to you, I promise, that's the L. And I will encourage you always, that's the E.
Thank God you didn't say scotch.
That's my motto, A-L-E. And as a chaplain, to always be available, to listen, and then to encourage.
Well, that's very important, and we regardless of where you are in your life, And I'll speak for myself, right? So when I was in my 20s, I could have used mentoring. There was no mentoring. I don't even know if we called it that.
Yeah.
And 30s, 40s, having children, being a parent, working long hours, and so forth. And so those are different stages in your life.
Yes.
And being that we're in football playoff season now, just about everybody, even if you're not a big football fan, you probably will catch some games. And I equate life to baseball. It's 9 innings, and you can make mistakes in the first, second, third, fourth inning and still win. You only have to win by 1 run. And you have a lot of opportunities, no matter whether your life is 50, 40 years, 100 years, God bless, whatever it might be. We have an opportunity to change how we're dealing with life. Maybe we got to throw a different kind of baseball, or we got to change our stance a little bit. Mm-hmm. Being that we're talking about football now, I equate where I am in my life to basically being in the fourth quarter of the game. So when I was a teenager, when I was a younger man, I might say, okay, I'm in the first quarter. Now I'm in the fourth quarter. I'll just speak for myself, not for anybody else. And I think the fourth quarter is extremely, extremely important. It's an extremely important quarter. And to use that a simile of it's like life. You can win the game, you can lose the game. No matter where you are, you still have time. You could be ahead in the score, but you got to know how to protect that score. And you could be behind, because using this as an example, maybe there are things that I haven't accomplished yet that I wanted to, that are still important to me. And instead of sitting back and complaining and whining about it to myself, I want to figure out a way on how to get to where I want to be so I can feel secure in winning the game. And in this case, it's the game of life. What bigger game could there be? And I wanted to ask your opinion on this, because I think whereas I didn't have a lot of mentoring when I was younger, nor did I ask for it, I think in the fourth quarter, most of us need perhaps more mentoring than we may have had earlier in life, whether they were concerned teachers, professors, family members, spouse, girlfriend, regardless. All of those people in some way, shape, or form can be a mentor. And I think what you do, not only here in Harvey Cedars, but throughout this island, is very, very important. I can be a great quarterback, for instance, but I need a good coach. And today we call it, coach. Everybody's a coach. They coach
life
you,
coach.
Life coach. Oh my God. That's just like a term that some folks in the fourth quarter, like myself, may not really care about. They think it's something new and untested. But that word, whether you call it mentor or coach or spiritual leader, is very important in regards to making sure. Certainly, I'll just again use myself in this example, make sure that I'm calling the right plays to make sure that either I make up the loss where I am right now in my game, or I'm ahead, but I want to secure that win.
Yes.
Because when this game is over, this fourth quarter is over, we move on to a whole different season.
Yeah.
And where that season takes us, nobody's certain. You will have a perspective. Other religious leaders will have a perspective, but I'm not smart enough to know where that's going to take me.
And you're one of the smarter ones, Fred.
You hear that?
But
Another first.
But no, seriously, I feel that definitely I attribute any success at all, and I don't even like that word success too much, but any fruitful encouragement, any fruit I bore in ministry over 41 years, I attributed a lot to two particular pastors that mentored me when I was a teenager through college and seminary, and then were very interested in following my career. and you know, those mentors sent me things, written things that they had created for me to utilize at weddings or funerals or in crisis situations, and I never threw anything out. I mean, our house is such a paper bomb, but I have, I think, 7 file folders full of notes, and I have thrown out a lot. I think it probably was 15, and now it's down to 7. And it's going to be down to 3 or 4 because I don't want my kids to have to, you know, deep six at all. And but mentoring is very, very important. I think that you know, showing people the way, guiding people, remembering that we are body, mind, and spirit. Mm-hmm. And my task, I feel, is to make sure people integrate the spirit piece with the body and mind. And I have always kept that. I have a little motto that's guided my ministry. And it's, I'm only one, but I am one. I can't do everything, but I can do something. And what I can do, by the grace of God, I will do. And it's that by the grace of God that I depend quite heavily on the older I get in that 4th quarter of my life, Fred. You know, it's not like I'm a zealot or I'm a, you know, Jesus freak or anything like that. But my faith is very, very primary to me and very, very important to me and to my wife. I mean, this morning we got up, we were eating breakfast. We always share. There's a little devotional. There's dozens of them out there for.
Can I just ask you to hold? We're going to keep that thought.
So, integrating the spiritual piece in life is important, especially, I think, in our 4th quarter. And so I was saying how Joycey and I begin the day with a little devotional thought. It takes not more than 5 minutes, and we usually each react to it naturally without asking the other person. And as I say, we're not wackadoodles. We're not Christian wackadoodles, but we are sincere about our faith, you know, and so it goes. You know?
Yeah. It's interesting how you presented it because, you know, I'm looking for another example. You know, it's like I went to a doctor's office one time without getting into the specifics, and he said things and he behaved in a fashion which was all very professional, but would not be what the typical patient would expect from a physician. And I think that sometimes that is the most effective role model in that particular position, because a lot of times people will go and they'll say, okay, what am I going to tell him? How am I going to lie? Okay, when he asks or she asks me, you know, do you drink? How many drinks a day do you have? And that's the expectation from the physician, and it makes for an uncomfortable annual, hopefully, visit or whatever the case might be.
Yes.
And when someone is clearly, in your case, a minister, you know, people expect a certain persona, and in many cases, that doesn't necessarily help with someone who is, you just answered correctly, by the way. I'm only kidding. Behaving in a fashion where they're beginning a relationship with Christianity. Perhaps they were more involved when they were younger. They're getting to another point in their life where they just want to, in this day and age of so much technology and insecurity, and, you know, we're relying now on AI companions because we don't have friends. We don't have family that we want to talk to. So I'm going to make a friend, and I'm going to talk to my friend, and my friend will talk back to me, and my friend will learn everything about me, so it gives me the appropriate advice and answer.
Yes.
What a sad state of affairs. That's just my opinion.
Right, Oh yeah, yeah.
And so when someone like yourself becomes available to someone, and doesn't come across as, okay, that was my upbringing when I was, in Catholic school, as in grammar school. I mean, we went for confession every Friday. We had to all go to church at the same time on a Sunday. The kids would go with their parents. And I missed Sunday church one time, and he scolded me literally in the confessional. And those kinds of images stay on in our subconscious, if not conscious mind. And then we're shocked when people, our age, stray from the church many, many decades ago. And then to come back to it, I think people would welcome that. But there has to be the right role model.
Yes.
For that to happen. And
right.
Since you complimented me earlier, incorrectly, by the way, I'm not I have a lot of work to do with myself, but I'll sincerely compliment you. You present yourself in a very accommodating fashion.
Well, for instance, I was just invited for the second year now to the firemen's annual banquet. My dad was a volunteer fireman, so I can really identify with the men that volunteer and risk their lives here in Harvey Cedars and up and down the island. They're not paid a penny to do it, and they do it because they're committed to their town. And you were there, and I was there when a home over here on the pond burned badly 6 years ago or so.
I just moved here.
And we stood there together as a small community within the community, and we, prayed for the family who wasn't present. They were actually just taking a bus back from the pyramids in Egypt. And
a bus. It's going to take them a little while to get here, but
but they're sweet friends of ours on the pond, but we stood together as a community. We kind of introduced each other to one another, and I remember Barbara said, "Have you met my husband, John Imperial?" And John said, "Oh, I know Wes." It was just kind of funny, and but
one of our neighbors, without mentioning names, names here, literally risked his life to go in there at the beginning of that fire to see if he could salvage. This is my understanding.
Yes.
Right? Salvage some of their prized possessions, whatever he could grab to take out of the house. So that speaks to this community, speaks to this town. Being that you go up and down the island, and we're talking about a sense of community, do you think, how's that, do you think, going to change, if at all, in the next, 3 to 5 plus years, as we are in this last quarter? For me, anyway. You're just coaching me here, not anybody else.
Our mayor, I believe, is a true visionary, and I think he is a people person, and I think he is a very thoughtful and thinks ahead type person, and he cares for every resident of this community, and he's just a solid person, and I think with his background and your background as well, I think that if we get enough mayors on the island to meet more together and perhaps continue the conversation about consolidating services. I don't know really what that means, but I do know that one of the things that humors Joyce and myself is every other week during the winter, seeing the garbage truck back down our street when it's brush day and pull out of our street like 8 times during the winter, 10 times during the winter, never to stop once. And I assume it does that on most streets, but that's their schedule, is every other week they pick up brush. Well, it isn't the season to pick up brush. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense. And we watch these guys. I'm glad for them because they never have to get out of the cab on a rainy or a cold or a windy LBI day. So, but I could see services being shared more. Communities coming together perhaps a little bit, at least North End communities, so that there's not so much driving and overlapping and such, Maybe our police department could expand to take in Love Ladies and Barnegat Light. It would make, to me, more sense, just, economically, than...
Yeah, that's a very good very good perspective on
But it is a great community. Harvey Cedars, I mean, it's a microcosm of a much larger community in another area of the country. In a nice area of the country.
Yeah. I think it's a microcosm, certainly of Ocean County, and sometimes I tend to forget now that I'm been here for 6 years. Some sources of media still refer to me as the Harvey Cedars resident. One day perhaps I'll get more of an identity. Harvey Cedars, the man on the street. The proverbial man on the street.
Well, they didn't hear you sing at the Veterans Day then, Fred, because they would have thought Mr. Merrill was there.
Well, thank you again. I'm going to have you on the show more often. Those are two really nice compliments that you gave. Obviously, very confidential. What I'm about to ask you, I'm not asking you in any way, shape, or form to indicate where these folks are from or where, who they are, obviously. But in the 6 years that I've known you, I think we've talked pretty much, you and I, about the same kinds of topics. They haven't changed. The general perspective hasn't changed. The general scope of the question hasn't changed. Obviously, the answers sometimes do, because every day it's something new, right? On the world stage, but the folks that come to you, and many of them have been coming and speaking to you for decades. Go back to the assembly of the football game. Has a conversation? You use that word. I like the word conversation. Has the conversation at all changed from when you started talking to them? Whenever 10, 15, 20 plus years ago, and today? Are the topics the same, or the broad topics, not the specifics? Because in government, everything changes every day in philosophies. But what I'm talking about more, or asking about, is themselves spiritually. Is the message the same? Are they asking for mentoring? What do you think?
Fred, I find myself literally looking up more and additional scripture passages on hope. I will never leave you nor forsake you. I'll be with you to the end of the earth. It's peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give as the world gives peace. It's like, I believe that people that came to me and come to me, new people too, come to me more fearful than I ever knew them to be before, because they feel they have lost a voice. And today, on Martin Luther King Day, Junior Day, it's a wonderful day, not only to recommit ourselves to service in his spirit, but also to recommit ourselves to hope, because here was a guy that was the pivotal focal person of the civil rights movement, along with several others, but he was truly the voice. And he just kept trying to keep people hopeful and to keep people protesting peacefully. He did not want to see people get hurt for sharing their points of view. And, I just feel that Martin Luther King Jr. his spirit is a force of mentoring in my life, because he never gave up. He was, the day he was assassinated, he had arrived in Memphis. He was going to speak on behalf of waste management people who dressed up in suits and ties, like their Sunday bests, literally, and had the signs that said, "I am man, I am a man." They were black men, and they had to, because they weren't paid what the white workers were paid. And to think that sometimes it appears that the last several years were sort of tiptoeing backward instead of moving in the Kingian, peaceful, nonviolent dissent. Now today you can't dissent, or they turn it. The government seems to almost turn it into a violent act.
So, as I expected, and as I said on the first show, I indicated on the first show that I was going to have you on, and I said, well, it's supposed to be a 30-minute show, and it could very well go 3 hours. So I want to try to keep this one to 30 minutes, and then we can always have you back, because I think that when we get through all of the smoke and the chatter and so on and so forth, I'm an introspective guy. I'm very extroverted now, but I wasn't always, but still an introspective fellow. And I think that how we deal, to the point of what you talked about, the day-to-day disruptions that go on in our country, how we deal with those, how we deal with disruptions in our state, and how we deal with what some would call disruptions in our own town here, and how we deal with change. Change is something that often on this island is spoken about. And I think how we respond to current events, how we respond to ourselves, how we respond to what plays we need to call for ourselves and our team, meaning our families, in the fourth quarter, is also very much tied into how we deal with change.
Yes.
And until we can deal with change and learn how to internalize that for ourselves, we're not going to come up with many solutions. Not for the bigger picture, but also how we perceive these things, and then in turn, how we communicate with each other, especially to people that may not necessarily agree with our position.
Yes.
And these are some of the topics where I think this show can gravitate to in the future also. Because this is about LBI, this is about our town, this is about, Manahawkin, to your point, and the mainland, as people.
I know.
I used to laugh when I heard that, the mainland. But yeah, I'll use that term, the mainland. And before we can make, I think, tell me if I'm right or wrong, so far you've been telling me I'm right most of the time, before we can actually have an impact, we need to have that impact on ourselves. And I think that is where your input comes in to help us, based on your experiences over 40 years of being in the ministry, because that's what people relied on. They relied on their religious leaders They didn't rely on AI to tell them how to deal with a grief. They didn't go to AI to ask about dating advice, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. They went to their minister, they went to their priest, they went to their bishop, whomever. Yes. And we seem to, as a society at least, have deviated to other subject matter experts, that their level of subject matter expertise might be taking a 6-month course. Mm-hmm. And so I think these are important topics that I'd love to talk to you about more in the future, but to kind of end it on a, I hope, a high note, this show anyway, this episode, I had asked Mayor Imperial towards the end of it, it's only January, but how would you like to see this year end? What would be a goal for this town? And he gave one. I'm not going to repeat it now because I'd like to hear if you had a wish, and it's only January, how would you like for the town at least and for the island this year to end? How could we perhaps summarize it?
Well, I think the town, the borough, we have some exciting opportunities this spring because I'm also chaplain for the beach patrol. Mm-hmm. And Randy Townsend is another of my bosses. We work together.
I thought you had one boss.
I do.
Okay.
And Chief Burniford and Randy, we work together, and I'm part of the orientation of the lifeguards each spring in bringing a prayer for their safety and just encouraging them. But this summer, because they've won 10 competitions, lifeguard competitions consecutively, we're having a parade for them. Mm-hmm. Great. And so it's the big anniversary of our country, 250 years. When I started in ministry in 1976, it was the 200th anniversary, and now
I vaguely remember that.
I will be celebrating my 50th anniversary in June of my ordination, and it's the 250th anniversary of our country. And there'll be parades, and I think that Harvey Cedars will be in the thick of that. I think that our veterans experience this fall will be, again, a glorious time to honor our veterans and thank God for peace on earth and goodwill among all human beings, and there's a spirit of goodness in Harvey Cedars. And I think when people turn into this podcast, The Edge of Town, and when they listen to each presenter and each person being interviewed, I think hopefully there'll be an enrichment of the spirit of community in Harvey Cedars, because it certainly is here. And if people aren't experiencing it, maybe they're a little bit too much on the sidelines, and maybe we need more people to get in the game in your image that you presented.
Thanks so much for tying all that together, because I was concerned that I might have started a ramble like I sometimes do. So thank you for helping me. It's almost like a Seinfeld episode. It all comes together at the end. And I am more than happy to partner with you in that goal that you have for the town and for the island, and hopefully for mankind,
Yes. Thanks,
so thanks
Fred.
very much for coming here. I know you have a busy schedule, and people rely on you for a lot of guidance here and so forth. And it was really, really wonderful to have you. So thanks again for being here.
Well, thanks for being my friend, Fred.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah.